Wegwe, yunki adizu wegwe unwe. Edit Yujets. Sta Socorro Castellan, Axota Yundadis Kwe Francisca Rueda. Zapotek New Honsage, Meshika Onowaragi. Yunata Huni Yankina Stadista and Toharage Ganosesne, Radianga Haga Gahno Wager, no West New Honsage Onowarage Gawanoge. Dinjin Warado Garun Wagaru Yagesu, Dano Yanki Sota, Santana Kagarakwa, Dano Yankinista, Yuhonsage, Dana Guegoscat Negunumwe. Dinjin Warado Tarunyo Wago Danosa Whiskera, Tini Ganya Taragero, Aguego Onunqua Sua. Aguire Sua, Asino Sua, Gatsa Sua, Asitanagu, Dano Ague Contirillo. Ayunki again had andawer on Hetserane, Gayanarasara Goa, Dano Degani de Yohane. Asani Gatdarage, Negayanga Haga, Dano Agueni Honsage, Yerinyato Yonata Huni Dano Yodiscarawage. Ayunki again had andawer on Hetserane, Orehuyo, Ganigorio, Dano Gayanda one, Dano Nogatana Yodaxa. Eresawet, 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 Dagarina Yotasawanikuna. Bonjour la création, mon nom c'est Edith, fille de Socorro Castellan et petite fille qui portait en vie le nom de Francisca Rueda, de la nation Zapotec et née au territoire Mexica, sous la protection du clan Zulu, du conseil traditionnel Kanien'Kehaka de la Confédération des 5 nations à Ganawage, et la Maison Longue. Nous remercions la femme ciel qui nous donne notre esprit, nous remercions notre grand-mère Lune qui nous donne notre sang, et notre mère Terre qui nous donne notre corps, et à toutes les femmes, de la toute petite nouvelle-née jusqu'à la plus aînée, parce qu'elles sont toutes les mères de nos nations. Nous remercions toutes les médecines, toutes les eaux, les arbres, les oiseaux, les animaux. On remercie tout ce qui nous donne vie. On fait appel au véritable esprit de la Gayanara Seragoa, la grande loi de la paix, et du Wampum à du voix. Et on fait appel à nos ancêtres afin qu'ils nous aident à rétablir ces relations harmonieuses, en équilibre, en bonne pensée et en bon esprit. Et tout ce qui est pas là pour cette bonne pensée, que ça soit repoussé dans les 3 niveaux de l'existence.
In the second episode of a Mohawk for the Independence, we will talk about the arriving of the British Crown, how they separate our 2 brothers, and they will talk also of the independence of Quebec.
Hello, here Jean-Jacques Mantel. I'm very glad that we're doing that dialogue because it's a first, almost a first in Quebec that's been done with individuals, and it's bringing us to the alliance that everybody is hoping, especially in French-speaking Quebec. We never understood why we were separated from our former allies. Now, today we have to talk about what happened with the English invasion to divide us, the Mohawk and the Québécois. The English, it was the English who attacked us in 1760, not the Americans. The invaders came from England itself. England is a commercial country. They wanted to do commerce all over the world. Then they attacked us to take the Valley of the St. Lawrence, which was the main artery to reach the center of North America. It was to make money that they did that. And of course, to make money to do that, they had to push us aside, Québécois and the First Nation, because they wanted to take the whole continent. When the English invaded Quebec, they had all of North America, including USA. And when they came into Quebec, and they won the war in 1760, and they made the Paris Agreement with the French, or Paris Treaty with the French in 1763. The French, they knew they couldn't take back or keep Canada. We were only 60,000 against 1.5 million, growing at an exponential rate. Then the French decided to let go Canada, and they told the British, you keep it. As soon as the British knew that, they started to kick out all our elites, all the superior classes of Quebec, and they made farmers out of us because we had inferior, let's say in bracket, classes. They were farmers and making a lot of babies. Then in the Treaty of Paris, the French said, you don't kick Quebecers out of Quebec as you did with the Acadian. They stay there. They said yes, but if they leave, they sell us everything they have in Quebec. Then the superior classes sold everything to the English. They became rich. They took the upper classes of our society, and they pushed us aside in the land. And the goal was to take the control of the St. Lawrence Valley to get into the West. The result of it was that the Aboriginals were in the way. And when the First Nation in the region of the Great Lakes, our allies, discovered that the French were leaving Canada, that our elites were leaving Quebec, they said they're going to invade us, because the problem was the English pushing west. And they said if the alliance is over, they will come and they will take our land. Then they made immediately, 1763, a revolt. All the tribes in the Great Lake region revolted under Pontiac against the British. And then the British said, okay, no. We don't want to fight anymore. We want peace. We won the war. Then what we will do, they gave appeasement to the Francophone here, Catholic religion and the language, because we were 90% of the population. They didn't want to fight with us because we knew how to fight. And they told the First Nation in the Great Lake region, okay, we will forbid any colonization west of the Appalachian region. They reversed the alliances. And then the Americans, they said, what's that? We did the war. We fought because we wanted to go west. And that's the reason why the American made the American Revolution in 1776, because they wanted to go west. Then what happened historically, the English kicked out the French and the Québécois upper classes, and 13 years later, the American kicked out the English from USA. The Americans were going west, not north. They were going west. And the result, I will finish with it, the English were on both sides of the border. In Canada, they were moving west, and the English in USA were moving west also. Both were trying to go to the Pacific region, and they were competing, the English to impede the American to take the whole continent.
Okay, well, first I'd like to say Skanagoa to everybody, and I'd like to express that I'm very happy with the last show, the first show that we did. It was very good. I've been looking forward to dialogue such as this. But as you know, like whenever you start a relationship with anybody, that it's always touchy. You want to move into the relationship nice and easy. You don't want to break anything. So it's going to take a while for us to become comfortable. But I'll tell you, I'm already comfortable with our line of conversation, because even if you identify something that is, say, a touchy issue, that you may perceive touchy on my side, it is the truth of the past, and the past must be resolved. There is, for some reason, a perception in the non-native world that they can just go around the world and do wrongs, break things, and just go on to the next thing and break that thing also without fixing the previous thing. Of course, that type of behavior is unacceptable. It's not a human behavior. A human behavior is if you break something, you fix it. And if you break a relationship, you try to fix it. So the way that we look at the history of the past 500 years here, of course, it's very different than the way any non-native person would look at it. And then it is much different if you have a person who is of mixed blood. If you have a person of native and non-native blood, that history becomes even more different, even more distorted than what our perceptions are of that history. So dialogue is very important. One thing that I would identify to you is that the people that came here from Europe, they all have their perception of how and why they came here. But that does not matter. What matters is the perception of the native people here. And we can say that it doesn't matter what the French's perception is as to why they came here, or the British, or the Spanish, or the Germans, or anybody else, because they all come here under the same pretense. They all come here with the same action. But there is a reality, is that everybody from around the world that came here, right up until this day, anybody that's coming here currently, whether they are refugees or they're just immigrants, right up until this day, they are all coming in under the British Crown, under British law, British rule. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter what if we go back, say, 300-400 years, the reality is that all the way through it was controlled by the British Crown. What people think to this day is that the United States is like an entity unto themselves. It's not true. They are not. They have always been and always will be a subsidiary of the British Crown. That's all they are. As you identified, that Britain, they are basically just a business. They are a corporation. The United States is a subsidiary of that mother corporate. The British Crown is the mother corporation to the United States. So when you identified all the history that you were saying, that this is how Britain confuses the people, how they play smoke and mirrors. Look over here, but what's really going on is going on under the table, where they'll do something like what is perceived the United States having a revolution separating from Britain. When you look at democracies, whenever there is a separation or a new democracy born, it is always born out of war. It is always a violent process. So it looks like the people who were in the 13 colonies were at war against Britain to separate from them. No, it wasn't. It was an expansion. That so-called revolution, it's not true, the perception that the non-native has of themselves in their actions. If you look at me, you will tell me if I have dirt on my face. I can't see it. I can see the dirt on your face. We can see the native people have observed the non-native people for 500 years. We can see what the true sentiment is. And this is why where today we are reaching out to, in particular, basically, only the Quebecois, because only with the Quebecois do we have a similarity in the want or the desire for freedom, but more so the want or the desire for justice and truth. So we have great similarities with the Quebecois that they have forgotten over time. They have become separated from, I'll say, from their own truth, from their own identity. And this is because of all of the influences, all of the oppression that has come and continues to come right to this second from the British Crown. It is still here happening.
As I said, the British, they came here to take the land, to take the wealth. And it's not a surprise that French-speaking Quebecers became poor. There was before 1760 and after 1760. Before 1760, we were rich. We were the merchants, the exporter, the importer. We had a governor and a line. We had an abnormally large superior class. People very educated, Champlain, Madeleine de Verchères were all educated people. When the British came here, they kicked that out. They pushed us in the farms and with Catholic Church, and they did the same to the natives. And because they wanted to take the land, we had the same enemy. Mm-hmm. Both of us became poor, and you lost everything. We only lost the control of Quebec. You lost your land. You lost your honor. They didn't respect the treaties, nothing, because you were all over the place. We were only in Quebec. The British, what they did to control the land, and they did that till today and tomorrow, is divide to conquer. They use you against us, and they use us against you. And in Canada today, and it has been like that since 1760, the control over the natives belongs to Ottawa, not to us. We never had the control to put you in a boarding school or to put you in a reservation. They did that. We never agreed. By the way, we are all métis in this place. I have Indian blood. She has the white blood. You too. Everybody, because we had an alliance. When Quebecers were invaded, we were only 60,000. Everybody thought, oh, we're going to destroy them and like that. But it was only farmers. Farmers are the most productive part of a population to make kids. We did 14 kids per woman. We were 2,600 Frenchmen came here to give descendants. Today we are between 20 and 35 million in North America. We produced a lot of kids, 14 kids. Then they could not destroy us, despite what they thought. And for all the time since 1760, we have been dominated totally. They stole our wealth. They stole our St. Lawrence Valley, which is worth gold. And they took it for them. We paid everything. They took all the profits. And we resisted. Then we fought for 150 years to keep New France. We lost the war. Then after we were many, we started, they were afraid that we would make a revolt, and they respected us. In 1776, when the American decided, because they fought a war against the British to kick them out, Quebecers were with the Americans to kick them out. And the Americans believed that we would follow them. We would become American. We would create the whole continent. We refused because we calculated, it was a mistake according to me, that it was better to have a faraway master than a too close and too powerful neighbor. Then they didn't want to be part of USA. It was a mistake, according to me. And we have been fighting with the womb of our women to make kids. They were never able. And since the English wanted to impede the American to take all of North America, they moved people from east to west. The English to Ontario and after to British Columbia, and we paid everything, through taxation. We paid everything to bring people in to go west. Then Quebec remained French, and the natives were put in reservation. That's what we saw, and it was resistance since then.
Some of the things that happened to the non-native people, they're unaware. They're unaware of a lot of the things that happened to them. All the dynamics that you identify of the different empires that came here, separate the British, the French, the Spanish. The non-native world views them as being separate because it looks like Spain, France, Britain. You think that they are physically separate places. They each had different kings and queens, so you think that they are separate. But the reality is, on the average person level, they were not separate because they had a common denominator that was undermining them from from being Spanish or British or French. And that common denominator that was undermining them was the Catholic Church. That Catholic Church had the same impact on the French, on the British, on the Spanish, within their own peoples.
If I can just say something, the Reformation started in Europe before the colonization of North America. Mm-hmm. Then the British were already Protestant. Of course, the Catholic Church had an impact on their culture because it's Henry VIII. Mm-hmm. who kicked out the Catholic Church. But by the way, today 30% of the British are Catholic. But the thing is, the Reformation came before, but it was Christianity. Probably you wanted to talk about.
You take, for instance, like you said, and everybody knows that the French here, like you identified, they were having 14 kids, 16 kids, 18 children. Now think of this. When the French first came here, they wanted freedom from the oppressions that they had in Europe. And the first thing that developed in their freedom was they became the voyageurs. Now think of this as a voyageur. Are you going to have 14 kids? You're not going to have 14 kids. The reality is, even not as a voyageur, just as an average free person in the world, are you going to have 14 children? No, you're not gonna. The reality is that the French were manipulated, the Quebecois were manipulated through the Catholic Church, the British were manipulated through the Catholic Church, the Spanish, all of them were, even though there was the Reformed Protestants, this, that, whatever, this is the smoke and mirrors. Divide in the rank and file, you divide them, but the higher ups are always still the same.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So here, what happened was that the people, the French people, were undermined by that thing which they, to this day, they don't really comprehend as being like the hand on the knife in your back. When they were here, they were fighting for their survival hundreds of years ago. They were wanting to become a free people. But there was a hand on a knife in their back, and what it was the Catholic Church. Because that was the way into the French people from Britain. That was their way in. No other way in, because there was the French were the French, the British were the British, and there was no way a British is going to get into the French for espionage. There's only one way, and that was through that religion. So at the foundation of the corruptions throughout the whole world, we identify is religion. Because then you have people from different, let's say, different jobs. French, British, Spanish, different jobs. But they're all guided by that religion. So they isolate themselves into separate groups, which you can't do. Because if they're all guided by one ideal, what is the point in having a false separation? It is false. What has happened in the coming here from Europe is, of course, has to be a big brainwashing of the people to not have them understand what they are doing. Because if you think of this, if I was to take my people to go to France, do you think that I would make the people in France would require of them to speak Mohawk? No. I would go to France and speak French.
Yeah, of course.
But when you think here, how many people, French people, how many people from anywhere else in the world know any native language? How many people who have from anywhere in the world even know of Mohawk? You see, the reality is that if I went to another country, I would learn about the peoples from that country. I would fit into that country. That's what humans do. But when all the people from Europe came here, they were not functioning on a human level. They were controlled through religion. That
Don't
made them
forget
do these
something
things.
about Quebec. First, let me say that I emigrated in Brazil, and I learned Portuguese, because that's normal. Human beings have legs, like all animals. They move, and they move from poverty to wealth. The wealth was here. It was the richest continent on the planet. People who moved here, and who moved today, here in North America, come because of the wealth. In the past, the three Americas, up until 60, 70 years ago, the three Americas were totally open to immigration. Today, it's all closed except two countries, Canada and USA. The continent is closing because it's full of people. In Quebec, now that's the first thing I wanted to say. Second thing, religion, Catholic religion in Quebec was important between 1760 and 1960. 2 centuries. Before that, we had a lot of educated people, and they were not that powerful. They were powerful, but not that powerful. It's when they kicked out our elites that they could take the control of farmers. Farmers were doing 14 kids per family, not voyageurs, not the Frontenac, Champlain. They left no kids. They were rich. Then it's the British invasion who made an alliance with the Catholic Church. You keep them under control, we take the wealth. That's what they did.
But I want to just to show something in there. the farmers didn't have 14 kids just because they wanted to.
No,
that
because it's money.
That was handed down from them right from the church.
Yeah, but the church was destroying an open door. The reason why farmers have a lot of kids is because they make money out of it. A 3-year-old kid can feed the chicken. 4 years old, you can take care of the pigs. Then you make kids and you have forest. And that's precisely what I wanted to say. Quebecers started 60,000. They tried to destroy it. We made babies when we occupied the land. And we started fighting for our rights. And we had the number. We have always been a threat up until today. And the result of it was that we fought. And in 1837, we lacked land. We no longer had a lot of land, but still making 20. My great-grandmother had 24 kids.
Holy.
And I mean, that's Quebec history. 2,600 till 20 million, you have to go with the wombs of our women. Then, when 1837 happened, there was the revolt in Canada and in Quebec and in English Canada, in Ontario. And the Queen Victoria sent her cousin here, Lord Durham. He studied the situation and he said, when I came to Canada, I thought it was a normal situation. A people fighting against an administration because the administration was corrupted and they were stealing the money. He said, that's not what I found. I found two nations fighting inside the administration. It's a mess. Then he said, we must destroy that nation. It's written black on white. We must destroy French-Canadian by take away Quebec. Quebec disappeared for 27 years. And they made the one united Canada. They brought immigrants and they said we will destroy them. In 1867 we did guerrilla, with the law, with everything, we impede them. Then they said, okay, we lost. And they recreated Quebec. Quebec reappeared with its former borders. And to get peace with French Quebecers, they give the control of the population to Quebec government. But they created 3 English-speaking provinces with the federal government. We were a minority, despite being 40% of the population. And they kept, till today, the control of the economy, and especially the St. Lawrence Valley belongs to Ottawa. They have the money, we pay the expenses. That was the fighting we have been doing since 1867. We'll talk about the rest later.
As you say, right up until today.
Yeah.
This is the reason why we'll see, like right up until today, the British, as you said, still trying to get rid of the French-speaking Quebecer. This is why we see what's happening with refugees, the immigrants coming here. It is to dilute the voice of the Quebecois.
That's it.
Now, you can look from a democracy standpoint of view and say, oh, well, that's a wrong view. It may sound racist or whatever. But the reality is that the people that are coming here now today, the refugees, the immigrants, we identify it as a second wave of colonization. Mm-hmm. And the second wave of colonization is going to be worse than the first wave. It's going to be worse for us. It's going to be worse for you, for the Quebecois. It's going to be worse for your average Canadian. They do not know or realize yet what is happening to them, because Canadians, being under the British Crown, they have this false beliefs for some reasons. And I don't understand how anybody could have such false beliefs, where first off, for instance, you think everybody in so-called Canada believes that they're in a democracy. But when everybody voted for Justin Trudeau, making it a democracy, then Justin Trudeau going and pledging his allegiance to the woman they call the Queen, means that Canada is not a democracy. So that means that everybody in Canada currently, right now, their perceptions are completely wrong. Now, if that is just the current modern day perception, then you work our way back and we can see how the perceptions have been wrong all along, but you can say that it has been at greater rates in the past, because now the reasons why the refugees and the immigrants are coming here so much, populating Quebec, and you look at it like in the past 2 years, you could see it. Anybody that lives in or around Montreal, you could see these condos going up left and right, all over the place. And when they were being built, I was saying, clearly, this is not being built for the people that live here. This is being built for people from somewhere else. They are going through, as you know, like throughout Canada, there was this thing they called the mortgage bubble. It's a false economic thing where they pump money and money and money into it, into the condos, the housing and all of that. And then what they'll do is they'll sell it to the poor Quebecers. And the poor Quebecers don't have the money to pay for that. They don't have the money, the jobs to maintain that. So what will happen is they use the poor Quebecers as the foundation, the footwork, to get these condos built, and then they call in the mortgages on them, and then they are sold to the elite that are coming from elsewhere around the world. And this creates, for the people that come here, a false sense of economic security. Now, this happened not only currently, right now, is it happening, but it happened in the past. There was false sense of economic security for the people that came here, in order to keep them locked into not the economic practices, but the colonization process. When, as you said earlier, that they came here for the riches, for the gold, for the riches that were here. There's no gold here, but the riches. It's unimaginable when you think of what was in Europe as far as resources go, what they call resources, and when you compare it to what exists even to this day here. Like, if even though the forests are depleted, the land is dug up, the rivers are destroyed, as far as you compare it to Europe, this place is still, it's heaven on earth. The riches are still here. But this is the goal. It's not to come and to say take gold so that you can put food on the table. The purpose is to come and take gold so you kill. Not kill just the people, but to kill the land itself, to kill the life. This is what the process has been when you consider, like in the body, what else in the human body, what else would spread? What would you identify it as if something spread throughout the body the way that the human population has spread out of Europe? There's only one thing that you could draw the parallels to in the human body, that's cancer. So cancer
is killing you. But you know something very important about Quebec that most people don't understand, and the British failed to understand that, and they still don't understand, and Quebecers nobody understands. Quebec is two sort of countries on the same territory. You have a natural country, the St. Lawrence Valley, which created the nation, the Quebecois nation. And the St. Lawrence Valley is also an entry point for people coming from outside. That's why I tell people, as I said, the 3 Americas were open to immigration. Today only 2 countries remains, and it's going to be closed very soon with the next crisis. Go to USA, go to Detroit, to Cleveland. I mean, it's a mess. It's over. USA, it's over. Canada depends of USA. The economies are interlocked. As a consequence, immigration will stop in North America very soon, according to me. 10 years, 20 years. Once that happened, Quebec will remain what it is, an entry point. We received in Montreal, we don't know how many immigrants. It could be 8 million immigrants in Montreal. They almost all left. I'm talking about the past. Because people move from poverty to wealth. They come from poor country. They come in Quebec, the poorest province in Canada, because we have been stolen. They stole our wealth, and they keep stealing it. And they stay here 2 months, 2 years, 20 years, 2 centuries, and out they go. Then they will move out Not because we will push them out, because it's the natural movement from poverty to wealth, which is in the West. Vancouver, California, that's in the West, the Calgary.
This is in the past you're talking about.
It's still like that today. The Quebec is the poorest province in Canada. Then, as a result...
But now the wealth is here now in Quebec.
Well, that's because this is economy. We could talk a long time about it. But what I try to say is that what we did in Quebec after being invaded, we fought. After 1865-67, after Confederation, we kept fighting despite the fact that they put us at the same level as Prince Edward Island, equality of province. They are 56 times smaller. This is cheating. It's constant cheating. They come before the referendum and, oh, we love you, very, very soft and nice. And the following, they win the referendum, and then they say, okay, we do the opposite. They did that for conscription in 1942. They did that in 1980. They did that in 1995. They don't respect us. They don't respect democracy, as you said. And as a result, we have been fighting as a resistance movement. But in the future, when immigration will stop, those who don't want to mix with Quebecers will leave, and those who want, in my family it's full of immigrants, they will become Quebecers. I have British, Scottish, Irish, native blood. Everybody is mixed up in Quebec. As a result, the country remains. It's going to remain. And we have to find a solution to... last thing, because of the double nature of Quebec, Quebec is the only place in North America which is really multicultural. We really have a French-speaking community in Quebec. We really have an English-speaking community in Quebec. The Cree are speaking Crees among them, Inuit. You know that in Nunavut, only 65% of the people speak Inuit? They are Inuit and they speak English. They are getting assimilated. Then the future of what we have to do in Quebec, it seems very bleak now, but it's not on the long term, because the country will create the nation.
Quebec, actually, we identify, is the only place on the planet that has a chance to separate from the craziness of the rest of the planet and to return our humanity back again. It's the only place on the planet that can do this without, say, like the same circumstances as Catalonia, Spain. You can see what's coming down the pipe there, that there is going to be lots of violence.
Yeah, of course.
Quebec is the only place in the world that can do it peacefully through law. Now, in Catalonia, Spain, they don't have access to law where they can do it peacefully. Because you consider, if imagine a woman in an abusive relationship. The man is always abusing her, beating her up, doing whatever. And then the woman says, well, I want to leave this relationship. And the man says, no, you can't. Imagine saying, no, you cannot leave the abusive relationship. That you must stay under this abuse. This is basically what's happening, what Spain is saying to Catalonia, Spain. This is basically what has been happening here, but on a different, more subtle level. When you consider, like what you identified about the 95 referendum. Yeah, I remember all the people coming from out west, and like you said, it was like a love-in, it was like a hippie thing, but it was a big show. What happened at that time during the referendum? There's a radio station in Kahnawake, and I used to go on the radio station 2 times a week, sometimes noon-hour talk show. And one week, the week before the referendum, there was this guy. He was a political scientist. His name was Gerald Alfred. He's from Kahnawake, and he was on the radio. And they asked him, well, what do you think the outcome's going to be of the referendum? And he says, there's no way to predict it. It's too many different factors.
Yeah.
And then I was on, I think, a day or 2 before the referendum on the radio, after this guy was on, and they asked me. And I says, they're going to lose by 50,000. And as you know, they lost, I think it was 53,
55.
50-something thousand. Like and then after the outcome of the referendum was there. They're talking about it on the radio, and the two talk show hosts are talking about it. And they says, "Hey, Stuart predicted that last week." And they called me. They says, "Oh yeah, he's like JoJo. Remember that woman back then, JoJo, like predicting." Anyways, I said, "No, that wasn't a prediction. I did not predict that. Predicting is like a guess." But when you know what the political game is, the reality of it is that it was a big lie what was happening. Because I'll say to you that all the people in Quebec, in the, I'll say like the upper echelons of politics, who have ever said they were for separation have been liars.
You're right.
They have all lied. They have all misled their own people. They have the hand on the knife in the back on their own people. Because...
let's say it was conflict of interest. They were really separatists, but they had other interests. They wanted to get elected before doing independence. I'm not making money out of it. I want independence. I don't want the money.
So
that's
then they're
the
not really... They never were separatists. They were never for independence. They were always British Crown agents. Always. Now, during 95, this is what happened. If you recall, there was the mayor of Kahnawake. His name was Joe Norton. And the mayor of Oka, Ganassadagi, his name was Jerry Pelche, or Roger Pelche.
Pelche, that's Pelche.
The two of those guys took a court injunction, took a case in the Quebec Superior Court, a court injunction saying that Quebec couldn't separate. Now, what we did was we sent a letter at the time to, was it Danielle Johnson, who was the premier in 95?
It was Parizeau in 95, okay. Of course. It was the referendum.
Whoever it was. What I'll do is the next show, I'll bring in this letter that we had sent to the premier of Quebec, identifying that Joe Norton and this Roger Jerry Pelche in Oka, that they had no right to interfere in the politics of our non-native sisters and brothers, because according to the treaty between us of the two row wampum, it identifies that I cannot interfere in your politics and you cannot interfere in mine. So in the letter that we wrote, that the mayors, because they are under they are the mayors of the British imposed Indian Act system. Now these two guys, them saying this means that they no longer have access to the two row wampum, which means that what you think is native or Mohawk, Joe Norton, the mayor of Kahnawake, they are not. They are not Mohawk.
They are part of the system.
They are the system. They are.
But you know, that's precisely what I said. It's divide to conquer. When you want to control a country, I'm talking about the land, you have to control the population. And you have two populations. In fact, you have 3 or 4. As I said, it's a multicultural society here. Then you divide people, one against the other. And you take the people you pay. I'm talking about the Liberal Party, Parti Libéral du Québec, and the council band of the... And you say, no, we are against it. We keep the status quo. Who's losing? All of us. Who's winning? Ottawa, the English Canadian. And that's precisely what I always said. In Quebec, what the people feel is that if they vote yes, maybe the Mohawk will start killing people. That's what they believe. They say maybe it would be on those in the Micmac, or on the North Coast. It doesn't have to be like that. First, it's not our common interest. Our common interest is to get an agreement among those who are poor to become rich. Because, you take all the population of Quebec, you take it away, you put Martians in Quebec. Quebec independence is still profitable because the land is rich, because the corridor is essential. That's the most important strategic point in all North America till the Panama Canal. It's worth money, gold. We should take that money and split it among ourselves through an agreement. That's what I was talking about. And the propaganda coming from Ottawa and the English Canada, is so huge, it has been for 257 years, that in Quebec everything we hear is stupid. It's a bunch of stupidity. For example, they tell us that it is extremist to impose French in our own homeland. All nations on the planet do that. Everybody throughout history has done that. And as I always say, if we are extremists to do what is normal, do you have room for the Nazis, for the serial killers, the Islamists who are cutting heads? If we are the extremists, we are the extreme. I mean, it's all stupid. In Quebec, a yes is a no is a yes. Aboriginals are the enemies of Quebec. We have always been allies. Things like that. It's propaganda. You have to attack the ideas which are wrong. And this is the reason why I believe that, by the way, the next program will be about the relation between the natives and Québécois today. And I believe that's going to be interesting.
When you consider, when you look back in time now, you look at 1990, that is 5 years before the referendum. And the powers that be knew that referendum was coming.
It's related.
Yeah. So they created that so-called, what the non-native calls the Oka crisis. It's not true. That's a complete fabrication. In future show, we'll get into that and even talk about what happened with Corporal LeMay when he lost his life and the reasons why he lost his life. Quebecers don't know the truth about this, and most Mohawks don't even know the truth about what happened during the summer of 90, how it was a manipulation of us to further the cause of keeping Quebec separate from the native people to only suit the need for the referendum in 1995.
Let's talk about it in the next program.
Hey, yeah.
The topics we discuss may seem very controversial. These are subjects that some people would avoid to address in everyday life. We are committed to bringing out the truth. If you have any relevant questions, you can send them to us on our Facebook page or via email to marie-claude.lacroix@yahoo.com. We will discuss with pleasure during future shows or during our live Facebook Live every Wednesday on Facebook. We accept interview and we are available for online lessons for any group interested in learning more about two-voice wampum. May the great peace be with you.
For thousands of years, the Kanien'Kehaka, Mohawk, have lived under the great law of peace within the St. Lawrence Valley.
Pendant des milliers d'années, les Kanien'Kehaka, les Mohawks, ont habité en paix dans la vallée du Saint-Laurent.
500 years ago, we encountered a new people
Et il y a 500 ans, on a rencontré un nouveau peuple
that changed the relationship between the people and the land.
qui a changé les relations entre les gens et avec la terre.
From the plains of Abraham
Des plaines d'Abraham
to the Oka crisis of 1990,
jusqu'à la crise d'Oka de 1990,
to the modern-day relationship between the Québécois and the Kanien'Kehaka.
jusqu'à l'ère moderne de la relation entre les Québécois et les Kanien'Kehaka.
We will examine the things that have divided us,
On va examiner les choses qui nous ont divisés
the things that we have in common,
et les choses qu'on a en commun.
our historical relationship,
Notre relation historique
and where we will go together in the future.
et où qu'on s'en va ensemble dans le futur.
Join us in our journey back to our integrity.
Joignez-vous à nous dans notre retour à notre intégrité.